Have you ever had a relationship against whom you've defined yourself? A la, if person X likes me, I like me. If person X is being cruel or withholding, then what's wrong with me? It must be something I did. Uncertain who you are or that your thoughts and feelings are right, this person becomes your meter and you calibrate yourself against them. If they're good with you, you're good with you. If they're bad with you, or not even bad, but just uncertain, which you've spun out of control in your head, it only serves to reaffirm everything you think is secretly wrong with you anyway. This person might be a spouse, a partner, an ex, or a parent or another family member, or in my case, a best friend. So it's late my freshman year at Princeton, and I'm working on my finals when I hear this loud shouting and music coming from across the courtyard. I stick my head out the window and scream, "Shut up!" To which a voice replies, "Why don't you come meet me?" The voice is coming from someone named Pam, who I've seen around over the course of the year, looking for any excuse to avoid work. I go over to Pam's room, where we immediately decide that the best thing for our studies will be to do a seance in which we attempt to summon a minimum of one-third of Barbra Streisand's career from the dead. From that point on, we are best friends. Never anything more, not even thwarted or subtextual. The vibe just doesn't exist. But we laugh our asses off all the time and have these awesome conversations. Also, Pam has this totally easygoing exterior where events can happen and just roll off her back, which is utterly foreign for me. There is no rolling off backs in my family. Rather, everything degenerates into mockery, criticism, blame, and anger, which I assume is simply the normal response to basically every human interaction. To give you some idea of what it was like in my household growing up, my grandmother, Mimi we called her, was the meanest person on the face of the planet. Mimi held a grudge against me for 16 years because, as she explained to me the summer of my freshman year when she finally forgave me, "When you were 2, I was giving you a bath and I said, 'Matthew, time to come out,' and you threw your hands in the air and splashed me and said, 'It isn't time, it isn't time.' And I thought, to hell with him." Mimi was at our house every other weekend, and a typical greeting from her was, "Did you gain weight?" A birthday present from Mimi might be a box of softcore porn she'd salvaged from her apartment building's incinerator. One memorable Thanksgiving ended with Mimi gathering all 6 grandchildren into the living room and rating us in order of who was most likely to get AIDS. But Mimi had nothing on my father. So Pam's breeziness is a revelation. From my experience at home, I don't think the problem is with what other people do or say, but rather with my reactions to them. I conceive of myself as being too emotional, too quick to anger, too needy, too sensitive. QED Pam, being unruffled by everything, must be totally normal. Like, one day Pam and I are going up to her room to have some tuna, and we realize I've forgotten the can opener. I feel my usual defensiveness rising within me when Pam, oblivious to any of it, turns to me and goes, "Let's just pretend we never wanted tuna." I think, I want to be like that. Despite Pam's dream of becoming a TV writer, she spent her formative childhood years in her basement sitting in a UFO made out of cardboard watching endless hours of television. She does jack for the year after we graduate. I spend the year traveling, and when I call her in May on her birthday, the first thing she says to me is, "Lyle Menendez has been arrested for killing his parents." Lyle was a year younger than us at Princeton, and despite the fact that we barely knew him, trying to visit him in prison, something we never do, is as good an excuse as any to convoy out to LA. By the mid-90s, I'd worked a number of jobs, casting, stage PA, a lot of temping. But how do you break into Hollywood? Shows start up and 5 months later they're gone, along with your job. You work for a producer, they lose their deal. You flick from job to job, not really hoping any particular job will last, just that it will be a stepping stone on the way to your next job. Everyone on the business side of Hollywood starts as an assistant somewhere, and the goal is to get off the desk, meaning even if you're doing very assistant-like duties, at least be called something else, like VP of Development with absolutely nobody reporting to you. And employers treat these off-the-desk jobs like they're hiring the head of FEMA. whittling a list from 70 applicants to 10 to 2 who then have to give oral presentations for their $40,000 a year thankless job plus bonus yelling. I eventually got off the desk doing script development, but also answering the phones for a producer at Disney who later became one of my closest friends, Ellen Collett. Pam and I remained intensely intertwined, rooming together our first year in LA and developing a core group of friends we hang out with all the time. Pam works as an executive for an alternative division of Fox called Fox Lab. They do shows like America's Most Wanted and Studs, while writing spec TV scripts in the hopes of becoming a TV staff writer. The Disney job ends and I flail for the next year or two, doing segment producing for Fox Lab, writing script coverage and pretending to be a producer. Though arguably my primary work was watching the Menendez trial and faxing outraged letters to CBS Sports about their horrendous coverage of the Winter Olympics. Ellen called and offered me a job as a studio executive at HBO. She'd recently been hired there as a senior executive and had apparently written it into her contract that she could bring me on board if she wanted. For the most part, I thought studio executives were moronic dictators who forced everyone involved in filmmaking to make their movies bad. It certainly wasn't anything I aspired to. Then again, neither was anything else. And with the Menendez trial wrapping up, what else was I going to do to pay the bills? Having been in Hollywood for a while and lacking any actual direction, my goals were focused on what I didn't want to be and how I didn't want to be perceived. In Hollywood, job is intimately tied to identity. You are what you do. Where do you work? Or for actors, writers, producers, and directors, what are you working on? Are status establishing questions asked shamelessly in the first moments of two people meeting each other, the answers to which are a central determinant in whether either of you will bother to remember each other's names. So taking a job at HBO didn't just mean taking a job at HBO. It meant becoming the man. It meant being stripped of the identity I didn't have anyway, and being imprinted with the identity of suit, and not just figuratively, but literally as well. HBO was very corporate, and coats and ties were required, which, despite the fact that I'd basically blown through my savings in my prior 2 years of being aimless, was almost a deal breaker for me. Whatever conception I had of myself, it didn't involve my jacket matching my pants. My mother, likely desperately relieved that I'd finally gotten something vaguely resembling an actual job, gave me some money to buy clothing, and I asked a costume designer friend of mine, Enid, to help out with the shopping. I acquired 2 jackets, a sweater vest, 5 shirts, 6 ties, 5 pairs of pants, and 2 pairs of shoes. I had Enid take pictures of every possible combination of every outfit, which I then entered into an Excel spreadsheet and dated so I would know what to wear every morning. Counting the ties, I had 2.5 months worth of combinations, which I wore continuously. In an effort to notify people that I wasn't a suit on the inside too, I used a Hello Kitty backpack in lieu of a briefcase, which Pam thought was hilarious.
What